A monumental shift is happening towards the end of March. Saturn, the planet of karma and material manifestation, is changing signs. For the first time in 30 years almost, it is moving to its most favorite sign in Aquarius, where it can do the best according to ancient astrology. And what does it mean for you personally? It means that the end of a serious problems in your life. For many of you, towards the end of March and April, you'll see the end of certain travels, of certain situations that were too complicated, that were too restraining, or that were too limiting in some way. The end of certain responsibilities, the completion of certain responsibilities and the results of them, but also moving into a totally new set of priorities and important lessons that you have to learn. The start of a new bunch of karmic lessons with Saturn moving in Aquarius, which will actually give very good results by the end of this period. It's going to take about 2.5 years for you to see the results. It's almost like while Saturn was in Capricorn, you were building the foundations, you were building the structure of something, you were disciplining yourself. And when it moves to Aquarius, you're going to now build the infrastructure, you're going to build the connections and the networking to achieve that goal or that that great work. So there will be a refocusing, a change of directions for all of you gradually from the end of March, from one set of priorities and difficulties to solve and lessons to master to another set of priorities and lessons to master, which will end up in the fulfillment of a great work, in the achievement of a great work for you. So exciting times, guys. March also brings Mercury going direct. So great news, 2 planets in their own signs. So listen what's going to happen for each of the 12 signs. Plus, we are doing an apprenticeship, so our second apprenticeship, one-on-one with a tutor, with an amazing astrologer, the best astrologer I've ever seen, with the best predictive techniques, Victor. It's his second apprenticeship. We already had our first apprenticeship group, but you work one-on-one with the teacher, graduate, and out of that apprenticeship group, 4 people are going to be working with us, will be astrologers that you will see that they will do videos with us. So if you'd like to have a chance to work with us with Astroladder, or just to learn astrology as a master, come and join us for this apprenticeship. Very few people, he cannot take many because he works one-on-one with them, and it's 30 or 20% off till the 20th of March. Pisces, rising sun or moon, March 2020. Let's first look at the specific influences only for March, and then we're going to look at the big prognosis for the next 2-3 years with Saturn moving signs for you. Well, the big news is that Mercury is turning direct for you, Pisces. I'm sorry. And it's going to turn direct, and most of the time it was retrograde actually in the sign of Pisces, the first 15 degrees. So Pisces were affected very strongly. My mother-in-law is Pisces, and when Mercury started gradually, shadow period and turning retrograde, she had so many plans for a new job, to move, to relocate, and one by one everything got turned around. Like they called her, oh, the job cannot start, some complications, oh, you cannot get the place, you have to find a different place. And she was like, what is happening? And I'm like, Mercury is retrograde in your sign, so you have to be ready for alternative paths and to be flexible but don't worry, by the 10th of March onwards, by the middle of March, everything will straighten out. There will be just some delays, so if you're in the middle of some delays and complications and your plans are going topsy-turvy, some complications with with the travel, with information, with devices, with business activities, with transactions, with communications, with negotiations, or it might just mean that you're working on some project that needs editing and refining and dusting off some old knowledge and redoing something over and over again and fixing it and improving it and just requiring 3 times more concentrated effort of the mind, or returning some documents, having to fill them again and whatever. So or having to make a new plan because the plans you had, maybe someone left some employee left or something out of unexpected, you know, Mercury connected business, work. um, but don't worry, by the time Mercury turns direct in March, around the 10th and onwards, all things will come to normal and they'll be much better than before, actually. And you'll be grateful that all those stresses happen, all those problems appear that you have to fix, because now you're more, you know, organized or more secure, more streamed, kind of more clear about those things. And if you've been doing extra efforts on some project with Mercury retrograde, when it becomes direct, you'll start seeing the results of it. And if there are some lost documents or communication or information, again, things will start coming to normalcy. That's the good news. Another thing is that Venus is going to be in its own sign, so good things, in your third house, Pisces, which means that wherever Venus goes and is strong, is a source of enjoyment and pleasure for you. So for you, that will be this third house. A source of enjoyment and pleasure for most of March will be maybe your siblings, relatives, hanging out with mates, with colleagues in small group environment. Some social do's, they would feel pleasant. Maybe you just go and grab a drink with someone and you end up having a really nice conversation. Also, Venus is where you can meet love if you're single. Venus being in the third house, strong in Taurus, you can meet someone online or while you're out and about in the street or through colleagues or in the office. When you're going about your daily transactions, and Venus also indicates that you might take a short trip that's very enjoyable. You might want to go for the weekend to another state or for like a short holiday somewhere, or just some daily trip or whatever, and it will go very smoothly. You might enjoy it. You might come across really good food, some good company there, pleasant views, enjoyable experiences. Also, it can mean it can smooth and improve relationships with neighbors, with relatives, with teammates, with workmates. You can really enjoy working on some project with a few other associates as well. Third house is business related as well. So you might enjoy some administrative tasks, more business activities, more marketing, advertising. It can go campaigns connected to marketing, advertising, to connecting to clients. Can go smooth and really well, and you can receive a boost, even some financial boost from that. So yeah, there are different ways. Or you can just be enjoying social media a lot, or just enjoying reading the news and getting this content feeling. Third house is that, the news, what's happening around, or just taking some course, some seminar, some webinar to learn certain skill. You might be really kind of great pleasure derived from it. Another thing is that third house is you can soup up your car. Third house is your car as well. Or you can take some luxurious travel, I don't know, on a boat or on a train, something that's more luxurious than other times. But if it comes to traveling, it tends to be good with Venus transiting there. You're protected, good things are happening. If it comes to learning something, social activities like that, again. It's also skills and interests. Some of you might be really enjoying doing something with your hands. I just learned knitting because Venus is transiting my third house currently, because I'm one ascendant before you. So Venus is transiting my third house, and I'm like, I really wanna, it's like third house is any kind of skill, something that you have to learn to do. And I learned knitting in one night and I love it. I know it's ridiculous. I'm making a baby blanket, but it's also, you're gonna enjoy such kind of arts and crafts and activities with learning some new skills. It will come very easy and enjoyable to you if you're trying something new that requires skill. Then Mars is going to be exalted in March, very good position again, and creating a wealth yoga, Pisces. And that's going to be in your 11th house, another social house. So again, you're being told, actually going out and about, socializing with people, going on groups on internet, on media, going to concerts or where people, or conferences, big events of large gatherings of people, where like-minded people get together, or just going out with friends, or going to some I don't know, charity event, something like ball or party or whatever, where there's community, where there's groups of people going for mutual interest or just to hang out together. This is the 11th house again. Something good comes to you because Mars and Jupiter are creating a wealth yoga in that 11th house. So if you get invited to that party or to that some social event, go. You can meet someone that becomes a source of helping you achieve your goals or dreams. Someone, opportunity appears, Jupiter, and you act on it, Mars. That's why it's a wealth yoga. Opportunity and action equals wealth of some sort. I mean, it might be wealth of knowledge, but it's usually even to material. It extends to material results. And you can see those results within the next 2.5 years, because Mars and Jupiter make a new beginning now. They're joining, they're starting a new cycle. So something new that appears for you through friends, through groups, through social connections, like a new goal as well in your life. 11th house rules goals and dreams that you start acting on. Oops. Sorry, my mom was calling. So when it starts now a new cycle, it might take you 2.5 years until they join again. This time they'll join somewhere else, I think in your sign in 2 years from now, 2.5 years. But that's, you know, it means that some opportunity that it might be very, and it's the 11th house is house of gains. So you have like a double wealth yoga, Jupiter and Mars, and it's temporary only, triggering 11th house. Jupiter and Mars creating wealth combination, triggering the 11th house of earnings and gains. And they come to you by connecting to the right people, by connecting to the right group, by connecting to someone like a mentor, or getting in contact with the right people at the right place. So stay aware about that. Build bridges, socialize in March. This is where it can come, and more gainfulness comes to you, as I said as well. 11th house is also the house of recognition, being seen by the public, you know, reaching larger audiences. There might be an opportunity for you if you're an influencer, for example. Is the 11th house the house of influencers, to influence others? And you don't have to be like YouTuber or something, but you might be a business owner who wants to influence larger groups of audience, who wants to influence more and get more clients. Fantastic time to make a project in March, to marketing, advertising, to reach more people. You see Venus in the 3rd house, which is also a business house, and Mars and Jupiter creating wealth yoga. And Venus is planet of money as well, again in another social business house in the 11th. Just when it comes to business, when it comes to connecting with others, to making, to finding new, to reaching wider audiences, fantastic time. Okay. And the other thing is that Saturn is leaving your 11th house. So in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, Saturn has been, actually the last 2 years, Saturn has been in your 11th house. And usually this is the time a person reevaluates their friendships, a person reevaluates who they hang out with, but they can become more lonely. They can very much limit their social circle to just a few loyal friends, or they might be even disappointed, or just friends from certain friends, or just friends leave, or they can leave certain groups and organizations, or they might just limit their social interactions for work, which is what Saturn is, because of achieving certain goals. They're working on some goals and they cannot socialize so much. They can't, and usually it makes it working for income and for your financial rewards hard. You have to really put lots of effort, but usually you start seeing the results of the extra efforts you did with Saturn transiting the 11th house of goals and gains when Saturn starts leaving that 11th house. And Saturn is leaving it now at the end of March. It will come back again from July for 5-6 months, and it will go out of it again in December. But you're going to see now for 3 months what it feels like not to have anything delaying your income, not to have anything delaying your resources or achieving your goals, not to have obstacles with that. And a lot of you might start seeing the results. Maybe you've been working hard on some business. 11th house, very business house, as I said, with Saturn having transit there over the last 2 years. You might have been working very hard to create a network, a clientele base, to create more, to working harder towards more income as well. Well, whatever efforts you put, now you're going to start seeing the results of them from the end of March gradually, for the next 3 months especially, because Mars is leaving that 11th house and will reward you if you did the hard work. And many of you did, because Saturn was in its own sign, Capricorn, where it tends to help people be, do the right work. Some of you, if you've been working towards some recognition, some honor or title, some social recognition of any sort, you start seeing the result. I can give you an example. When Saturn was transiting my 11th house, I worked so hard towards my goals, towards growing my social influence, because 11th house is influencing, remember, and clients. And it was growing gradually, little by little, but I was doing so much work, and the income was growing, but with a lot more effort. And once Saturn left that 11th house, it was just like I got so many rewards, and it kept growing after that. So the efforts you've been doing over the last 2 years, now you start seeing more and more results. Like you've created a stable foundation there for your goals. And of course, when Saturn transits the 11th house, it might have meant disappointment from certain goals and seeing that they're unrealistic and leaving them. But whatever you build, it can give results for quite a long time now. But Saturn is, and if there were complications with friends and stuff, this will disappear. And for the next 3 months, only Jupiter, the planet of expansions and rewards and gains, is in your 11th house. So I think you'll become more gainful, you'll become more popular, you can have more influence if you're talking about your own business, or you can reach more clients as well over the next 3 months. If you're talking about, you can receive some rewards, some bonus if you work for another company, some network that you create with the right people who bring something good. Some important people coming into your life that bring opportunities. You might see it already from March. Welcome them, because they'll bring a lot of growth as well. Even if they're, not your, even if you don't expect that, believe me, I had Jupiter transiting the 11th house last year, and I met 3 people who grew my business so much, and my inspiration in life as well, connected me with other people, and So now that Saturn is moving out of your 11th house, there is no more delays or blockages. You've learned how to be, let's say, mature and more organized and more responsible towards who you connect with, to recognize more maturely such people. And now Jupiter will bring the right people to you. So grab this opportunity. But Saturn is moving into your 12th house for the next 3 months only, where it's also in its own sign. So it's not going to be devastating. Usually they say Saturn in the 12th house, hospital stays, prisons and stuff. I can guarantee you, Saturn in its own sign in Aquarius, it's not going to go to those really, really difficult manifestations. What can happen, though, to be prepared, and you got to get a glimpse of it for the next 3 months, is that your priorities will start shifting. And almost like you'll start a period of release and letting go that will continue to 2021. And that's a very important psychological period. It's a period when you're completing for the next 2.5 years, karma of 30 years. So there'll be a lot of completions, but you're ready for those completions. You're ready for those endings. Like, I'm still having Saturn in the 12th house for the last 2 years, and I've been just completing how I'm doing work, and I'm preparing for a totally new chapter in my career, in my future, in my life. And it feels like the right thing, unless you're really holding on to the past. Then it feels painful. But with Saturn in Aquarius, it almost brings you the intelligence to recognize it's the time. So you'll be releasing and starting to shed your old skin gradually. It's a long process, doesn't happen overnight. And you start noticing this from the next 3 months. And the biggest work you're going to do while Saturn transits the 12th house, the most beautiful work you're going to do, is that you're going to get to overcome and to get released from weaknesses and hidden vices. This is the meaning of Saturn in the 12th house. You're going to get a lot of insight to master those things that control you, that rule you, those invisible forces, those complexes, those psychological issues from past lifetimes or early memories, or addictive behaviors, self-sabotaging behaviors, to confront those fears and to master them. It might start more scary though. It might start like those fears rising, those connections to the past rising, those phobias rising, those feelings, emotional feelings and states that you're kind of unexplainable, that are more fear-driven and worry-driven. It can start like that, but eventually what it makes you is makes you extremely emotionally resilient by the end of this process, by 2022. And you release so much luggage, so much unnecessary psychic and psychological pain that you carry around. If you've read Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the pain body. The pain body is contained in the 12th house and in the 8th, the emotional houses. When Saturn goes there, it starts like a slow scraping, detaching, because Saturn is represented by death with a scythe. So you start kind of trumping with that scythe towards this pain body that we carry from incarnation to incarnation. And when Saturn enters into the first house, you get liberated and released. So a lot of karmic addictions, karmic vices and weaknesses that we have from repeated lifetimes get confronted, get worked through slowly. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of things get completed that are no longer, that it's like a burden to you now. But sometimes a person might feel like, oh my God, I have to let go of so many things, but I've always lived this way. I've always, relied on my marijuana, for example. I always relied on those medicine. I always relied on cigarettes. I always relied on this person, like they're part of my life. How can I live without them? I don't want to give them up. You might be forced to give something up. You might be forced to lose something but ultimately, it's whatever leaves your life when Saturn transits the 12th house, it's because you no longer need it, honestly. You've matured and grown up enough to not need it, but it feels scary because you've always been doing it. I've always watched my porn. I've always, whatever, anything that is self-sabotaging behaviors, everything that is holding you back from your full potential, old patterns of thinking, of behaving, of fears. And first they awaken, that's why it feels a bit scary. And then they start leaving, slowly work through. And by the time Saturn enters your sign in Pisces, it's like a clean slate. You started, given the opportunity to build a new life. Also, it can mean that you start preparing something behind the scenes that might take 2.5 years from now on, from March onwards, to complete, and you can bring it to the surface when Saturn enters your sign, Pisces. So it's, for me, this is what has been. I've been preparing, and for some of it can mean like deep research, deep study, exploring alternative career, or preparing for alternative careers and studying, not yet starting. It's no time when Saturn transits the 12th house to start something totally new that you've never done before, but to start studying about it, to start researching about it, to start preparing for it. Or if it's some business that you want to launch in 2-3 years from now, you can start the lay ground for it, in the sense like you can start, for example, if it's some software you want to develop, it can take you a few years to do that, and you bring it to the surface. So it can be some preparations behind the scenes. It can be a great time for people that love to be alone. Saturn makes you want to spend more time alone, looking introspectively at yourself, removing a lot of complexes and stuff. People that are into psychology, astrology, the occult, into mystical knowledge, into self-analysis, they actually thrive during Saturn transiting the 12th house. And you as Pisces, you're naturally inclined to the self-introspective state. You're naturally inclined to look deep. you know. So I think a lot of Pisces will actually really enjoy that time. It's a little bit more retreating from the light and from the lime. uh, you'll feel it a little bit over the next 3 months. It really starts, it will really kick in from December next 2020. But it's like retreating, and it's also allowing yourself to rest more, allowing yourself to even take a break from work, to especially 2021. A lot of Pisces might want to travel or go to a foreign country while Jupiter and Saturn are in their 12th house. A lot of you might, for example, need to be in some kind of a more secluded space. Sometimes might be pregnancy, sometimes might be raising children, sometimes it might be uh, working very hard on some creative project, which requires, say, you want to write a book in 2 years, or learn sculpturing, whatever, and you have to be more isolated, and but people kind of feel ready for this isolation. They want it themselves, and if they don't want it, it's imposed on them from outside. And sometimes it can even block the possibility to move and travel a bit, unless it's for work, which Saturn makes it more burdensome. But it's fantastic time for some deep work, psychological digging, overcoming weaknesses. It's fantastic time for, if you have business abroad in faraway places. Saturn is work, 12th house, faraway places. Or if you have business or work connected to retreats, to psychology, then you have a lot of work. Or hospitals or prisons or hotels, then you can take positions of higher responsibility, of more work. For example, you can really uh, up your game with more authority there, as long as it's 12th house business. So if you're in the spiritual business, or in the business of imagination, in the business of faraway countries and escapes and retreats and hotels as well. One other thing is that sometimes people notice that they have problems with sleep when Saturn is in the 12th house. Saturn is blockage, 12th house is sleep. Uh, Others notice that they can start doing a lot of very deep meditative and spiritual exercises. It's been noticed that the person has a lot more self-discipline when Saturn transits the 12th house to do spiritual practices, to follow through every day a little bit, 5-10 minutes, whether it's meditation, whether it's quieting the mind, because otherwise a lot of fears appear, a lot of uncertainty about the future, because you're in a concluding period, but you still can't see where it leads to. You can feel confusion, and I don't know where to head. What's the next step? What's the next direction? I'm losing steam here for a lot of things in my life. I'm not excited about this or that anymore, but what is the next step? I don't know. It's okay. Accept it. Allow yourself to feel like that when Saturn transits the 12th house. The answers will come by the time Saturn moves out of the 12th house. Often they come even before it moves out, so it gives you time to start preparing. But you can only start manifesting the new direction when Saturn is in your sign from 2022, something like that. But it's okay. We're not okay in the Western world with giving ourselves some time off to prepare, to take a step back. I mean, some of the biggest businessmen, when they had their biggest breakthrough, before that they had businesses, they really burned themselves out. And what they said, some of the biggest, the most important thing that they took is to take a step back, and to give themselves a year or a few months or 6 months or whatever, not to push anymore, not to hustle, not to work, not to pull themselves out of the forest, out of the trees, so they can see the forest. So that's the 12th house that Saturn wants you to do, to give yourself a bit of a retreat, to work within, to see a different perspective, more spiritual, higher, you know. Especially in 2021, you're going to notice that you're still quite public in 2020. Jupiter is in your 11th house. You're quite required to do, there's gains coming, there's a lot of material involvement, but it's more like preparation for 2021, what I'm telling you. And 2021, to allow yourself, especially Pisces rising people, and to a lesser degree Sun or Moon, to give themselves this break a little bit, to have time to think, to have time to imagine, to dream. I was like, well, Saturn was transiting my 12th house. It still is. Downloads. I get downloads, and I know that these things will be achieved only in 2, 3, 4 years. But I started working, preparing for them. So watch out how you connect to the invisible world. Your mission, your great work can be given to you in dreams or in sudden inspirations. Oh, not sudden, some inspiration, you know, like a vision starts forming for you. Uh, but yeah, so, and those people that they had a burnout and this they took a step back to reconsider, I can't keep on like that, I have to do things differently, I have to let go of my perceived ideas of how business can be done or whatever, or how I should live my life. And then when they started again, this is when they had their biggest successes, because they did things in a way more inspired, different way, uh, without burnout. So this is what you're asked, especially 2021, to take that step back. So, and I mean, they can be, you know, don't get scared about the scary predictions of Saturn in the 12th house. It can sometimes be tough psychologically, emotionally. I developed some fears and phobias of flying, of small spaces, claustrophobia, more like. But it's all manageable. You all can confront them. That Saturn brings those things so you can confront them and work through them. Uh, and it's the first time in years, I stopped smoking, drinking, and I've tried for years before that I'll stop, and it'd be so hard. And I tried it and I tried it, and when Saturn comes to the 12th house, you're forced into it. You know, somehow it's like life says these old patterns. If it's harming you, if it's not harming you, it will stay in your life. If you still need it, it will stay in your life. Life will not strip you bare. Uh, you know, and the 12th house is, yeah, so I can talk for hours about that, but okay, that video will become too long. Thank you so much. If you want to check my 2020 videos for Pisces, it's an hour and a half. It's only $9 and it's available only for a month. If you like my style of teaching, that's specific for 2020, almost month by month, the most important events. So thank you so much, Pisces, and hope that brought you understanding, and you can come back to this video many times in the future over the next 2-3 years, um, to check out the mood. How are you on that 12th house energy? And by the way, 12th house sometimes can mean hidden enemies. That how it started when we Saturn transiting my 12th houses. I found out a lot of secrets about someone that was in my life that kind of was doing behind my back things, and they tried for 2 years after that to harm me all the time. Uh, but if you're moral and if you're honest yourself, and the advice is like, don't fight aggressively back with such people, just withdraw from them, and you can get rid, because they appear, people from your past or from past lifetimes that have karma with you usually can appear when Saturn transits the 12th house as well. So um, if anything like that is happening again, you will survive, you will live through that. You will. I stressed so much when this happened, and it made me stronger, it made me not fear. It prepared me for that battle with my own hidden enemies, which is my own weaknesses. But it first transpired as an outside hidden enemy that I discovered they've been doing some weird stuff, and that after that for years they tried to tarnish my name behind my back with hidden accounts and whatnot. It's crazy shit. But it works out because it prepares you. It's kind of symbolic of you battling your own inner demons, and of you overcoming your own, bringing to the surface those things that were tripping you for years and years, so you can start renewed and new when Saturn transits through your first house. Thank you so much, Pisces, and I will see you next month.